The president is defending U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi. Her and FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino are reportedly at odds over the handling of the Jeffrey Epstein files.
Chanley Painter.
Brother, this is a pivotal moment because this is like the rallying cry of the entire conservative media ecosystem. I personally have said over and over again that there is no way that they would reveal the actual Jeffrey Epstein files because it is a blackmail operation conducted by both the CIA and Mossad. Why would they do that? And I think Democrats who are now actually confidently saying release the Epstein files, with some notable exceptions, are saying that knowing full well that Trump will never release the actual Epstein files. This is having a total Streisand effect. Do you think they'll try to dump it on someone like Bondi and we'll just blow over? This will just blow over too? I think eventually, as everything else, this will also blow over for sure. But this is not one of those things that's just going to be hand waved by Donald Trump. Something has to happen. Some changes have to happen, or something that like pushes the conversation back a little bit. Because every single time Donald Trump speaks on this issue, he ends up advancing the cause. He ends up creating a Streisand effect around the Jeffrey Epstein files, and people go, what the you said you wanted to release this. Why aren't you releasing this? I think the reason why they're not releasing anything, and not even like, for example, Democrats that are involved, because everybody knows that there are Democrats involved in this, is because there are a ton of Republicans and also apolitical people that fund both parties from time to time that are also involved. That's it.
President posting this in part, quote, "1 year ago, our country was dead. Now it's the hottest country anywhere in the world. Let's keep it that way and not waste time and energy on Jeffrey Epstein, somebody that nobody cares about." The president's post coming after some Trump supporters criticized Bond.
Nope. You can't just hand wave this away, bro. I think he thinks this is just like any other story. You're still talking about that guy? Who cares? Every time he says that, people go, that's suspicious. Especially considering how many photos there are of Donald Trump hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein, dude. I mean, come on.
Obviously, there are lots and lots of questions that have been swirling about Jeffrey Epstein for a long time, for over 10 years, and the government's involvement in it. If there's anybody who could walk in and say, okay, we've resolved all of the questions and there is nothing here, it would be President Trump and his crew. The problem is you can't really do it without giving some explanation, and there has to be some explanation, and I think that's why you have a lot of people still pretty...
This is Trump loyalists in mainstream media trying to give Trump talking points and trying to explain why Trump is failing to Trump. When they say, oh, like, if there's any man who could put this to rest, it's Donald Trump, but he really needs to do a better job of explaining why, after, you know, running around and consistently claiming that Jeffrey Epstein situation was like weird. They didn't even throw the MAGA weirdos a bone and mention the Clintons because they can't. It's the same reason why Barack Obama did not prosecute war criminals of the previous administration. It's because it's like this. When you're above a certain level, when you are a part of the ruling class in the United States of America, that class interest transcends ideological boundaries. Trump going after the Clintons is basically like going after himself. Why do you think Donald Trump didn't jail Hillary Clinton after saying lock her up over and over and over again the first time he ran? Why did he not lock her up? I wanted that to happen. It would have been awesome.
It's the double down right here on Truth Social. A big post saying that actually it's the Democrats who wrote the Epstein files.
That was so good. The idea that it's actually the Epstein client list is real, but the Democrats wrote it, which is an implication that like if they were to release anything, it's fake because the Democrats put a lot of like Republicans on the list. I mean, that's basically what this is, right? Oh, the client list is fake because like the Democrats put a bunch of Republicans on it. Meanwhile, that response was so stupid that even Fox News, as you noticed, didn't even run with it. Also, if the Democrats wrote the list, why didn't the Democrats release the list? If it was actually a totally fake list that they put together. Even Benny Johnson is speaking out against it. And Benny Johnson is a lapdog of the admin. Felix says, I don't think they could have done a worse job on this if they released a video where it's obviously Trump on the Lolita Express and put a big label over him that says AOC and went, well, look at that. It would have gone over better.
So President Trump has acknowledged that the Epstein files exist here. President Trump has acknowledged that the files were written and that there is something there. He says that they were written, however, by his enemies and therefore will not be released. Whoa, what? That's new. in this entire zeitgeist.
This was the absolute worst possible way to deflect away. Oh, there is a list. It's real, but the Democrats wrote it, which implies, in the eyes of every single person that's paying attention to this, which is a lot of MAGA Republicans, this simply is an admission that, like, you're on the list, or at least your homies are on the list, and that's the reason why you're trying to protect the list from ever being released. Oh, you're saying like, oh, the Democrats wrote the list. And it's funny because we know who a lot of these people are. Like, it's not speculation that the Clintons were deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein. It's not. We know for a fact that the Clintons were directly involved with Epstein. They would go to his New Mexico mansion, the ranch. We know that. We know Ehud Barak, former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak, was deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein. He would go to his New York mansion. We know Donald Trump used to be deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein, was friends with him. Jeffrey Epstein would go to Mar-a-Lago. His initial mansion was in Palm Springs, right down the street from Mar-a-Lago. He used Mar-a-Lago as an environment for recruiting young girls, victims, into his sex trafficking schemes. Or not Palm Springs, sorry, Palm Beach. I apologize. Like, all of this stuff is out in the open. Like, none of this is like fake. The thing that you could at least point to with Trump, at least in the past, was, well, you know, he said a lot of positive things about Jeffrey Epstein, but he cut ties with him, as far as we know, after he was outed as a pedophile, as a pedophile sex trafficker, right? As opposed to the people that I just mentioned, Ehud Barak and the Clintons and whatnot. Long after this was out, they were still maintaining contact. I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell was front and center at Chelsea Clinton's wedding, guys. It's not hidden. This stuff is like well documented. It's photographed. It's out in the world. It's out in the real world. Here, there she is. And the mouse cursor, you can see, here's Bill Clinton. Here's Chelsea Clinton. Bill is walking his daughter down the aisle. And there is Ghislaine Maxwell. And if you've ever been to a wedding, especially a wedding of like the ruling class like this, that placement is deliberate. Okay, that shows her closeness to the family. Like, she got a aisle seat as a honorary guest at Chelsea Clinton's wedding. That is on purpose. That is how close she is to the family. And this is far after Jeffrey Epstein was already outed. I need you to understand, it's not like this stuff is hidden. Alan Dershowitz is a Jeffrey Epstein affiliate. Alan Dershowitz goes on Fox News still to this day with regular frequency. Part of what Alan Dershowitz used to do was disparage Virginia Giuffre every opportunity he had on Fox News. He was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer. So we already know there are plenty of powerful people out and about that have been called out. There are plenty of people who are out and about that have been called into question. Yeah, 1 year ago, we witnessed a miracle. There truly was a guardian angel looking out for him that day. This is just the client list, which, you know, people say is not a real client list or whatever. Okay, whatever you want to call it, is just people wanting confirmation about what we already know. How much were Jeffrey Epstein's high-profile clients, how much were they involved with the actions of Jeffrey Epstein? That's it. Who's in the videos that Jeffrey Epstein shot in all of his different properties that were all in his terabyte of video footage that he had carefully crafted and put aside? So that's it.
There's been a lot of infighting in the Republican Party over basically who's at fault for the giant botch of the Epstein files, with the majority of Republicans not wanting to believe that Trump himself was against a full release, but rather that he was sort of tricked into not releasing the Epstein files by one of his lackeys. But today, Donald Trump came out and basically backed Pam Bondi, saying
this is perhaps the worst possible way that he could have dealt with it, because at least there was plausible deniability from all of the Trump orbiters that still want to defend him. And now he basically confirmed that he's the one who's standing in opposition for the release of these files.
This is not a left versus right issue. Epstein never has been. It's the people versus the predators, not left versus right. The people versus the pedophiles, the people versus the people on planes. There ain't no left versus right here. In fact, some of the people who want this the most.
Yeah. A lot of right-wingers in the MAGA base want this. A lot of liberals and leftists want this too. I will say this. I don't think liberals have as much brand loyalty to the Clintons or any other liberal that might be in the Epstein files as do the Republicans to Donald Trump. I don't think that that is a controversial statement, which is precisely the reason why I would say that it's more shocking that the MAGA Republicans still demand the release of these files, knowing full well that this might actually implicate Donald Trump as well. This is one of the few instances where I will say that the reason why, for example, the Democrats didn't make a bigger deal about the Epstein releases during the election cycle when what's-his-face was running around, Michael Wolff did a bombshell release. And he is a bit of a fabulist, but Michael Wolff did a bombshell release talking about how he has tapes with Jeffrey Epstein, where Jeffrey Epstein tells him that he was still connected to Donald Trump. This, under different circumstances, would be utilized by a competent party against Donald Trump. This was in the lead up to the election. Do you understand? This was a bombshell piece of information leading up to the election cycle. Why did the Democrats not talk about it? Because the Democrats know for a fact that Jeffrey Epstein is connected to some elite pedophile Democrats as well, because they were too busy defending the Clintons. They were too busy defending power. Trump and the right-wing movement doesn't play by those rules and would rather burn everything to the ground in an effort to win leverage over a conspiracy-backed audience, a conspiracy-minded audience, even if they have no intention of ever releasing these documents. And that is where we are now. I think that, these people were fully aware that they had no intention of releasing these documents, but they still tuned up their base over and over and over again. It's not even a conspiracy, though. I know. Well, this is a conspiracy in the actual original term conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy theory. The Jeffrey Epstein stuff isn't. But conspiracy theorists also obviously look at this as well. They hyper-focus on this as well. It's kind of like 9/11 or the JFK assassination, right? There is still a lot that is unsolved about these things. And so people develop their own personal theories, some of which are far-fetched and others that are closer to reality. But the people that are invested in conspiracy theories in general also tune into these like real-world conspiracies that are quote-unquote unsolved. And Trump's base is full of guys who believe in far-fetched conspiracy theories that also understandably are hyper-focusing on this conspiracy, not conspiracy theory, but conspiracy, to conspire.
And what's interesting is obviously the Trump administration has sort of played footsie with this idea for a long time, playing to their base. They know this is a big issue. They had the influencers stand out there with a bunch of released material, but we also showed clips of Donald Trump implying that maybe Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew were doing bad things on the island.
Bill Clinton.
Got a lot of problems coming up, in my opinion, with the famous island.
That island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew.
So consistently, Trump has hinted that
his FBI, by the way, Trump's own Department of Justice, this past week stopped the Prince Andrew probe. And his Department of Justice officially ended the probe into Prince Andrew. Now, Prince Andrew is, unlike some of these other suspected affiliates, or suspected rapists, let's say, child rapists, that are known affiliates, because if we were to categorize this broadly, like, you have affiliates, but we don't know what they did. And then you have people who you suspect as being affiliates, but again, you don't know the extent of their affiliation. And last but not least, there is the third category, which is an affiliate that has an actual victim come out and name with footage. Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew fall in the third category. Bill Clinton and Prince Andrew, unironically, were named and have been photographed with Ghislaine Maxwell and even Virginia Giuffre, as is this photo, as you can see. Virginia Giuffre, who unfortunately passed away recently after an incident in Australia. Same with the Dersh. And as I said, Prince Andrew was even basically disowned by his own mother, the Queen of England. That person, after being outed and had a bunch of these people yell about him, even that investigation being dropped by the Department of Justice is crazy. Here's another version of this as well. This is a confirmed Epstein victim, Sarah Ransom, former prisoner of his island, in contact with the FBI deputy director as recently as last week, accusing Peter Mendelsohn of sex trafficking children. To date, he's been asked about it publicly only 3 times, once replying simply, "F off." So we know all this. So there are people who are directly photographed with victims. It's so strange that they wouldn't even go after those people. The very refusal of prosecuting even people who have been pictured with victims, people who are like known offenders, paired up with like victim testimony, photographic evidence. I mean, that obviously creates a very interesting environment around this. It's an active cover-up.
By the way, allegations that now are basically over. Prince Andrew is very happy about us dropping the Epstein probe. A source for The Sun said he's only been abroad once since the scandal.
I mean, Prince Andrew is like the tip of the spear, right? So the very fact that Prince Andrew himself is also like, who is very obviously guilty. The very fact that the DOJ would drop that is crazy.
Now, I have to say, Trump's been pretty consistent on the fact he has no interest in releasing the Epstein files in full. He said this multiple times. The reason most people have sort of a false memory of this, the reason it's sort of a Mandela effect that he campaigned on the idea of releasing the Epstein files, is because Fox News released a deceptively edited clip where they cut out the part where he said, yeah, I'll probably release the Epstein files. And they cut out the part where then he backtracks on that completely.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
And that's the part most of us saw. Of course, later, people found out that the full clip showed him.
Who's that right there interviewing Donald Trump? Oh, yeah, that's right. That's only the Secretary of Defense. At the time, he was just a simple Fox News commentary person. But now, of course, he has a different career. DUI hire. Classic.
There are a lot of names associated with Epstein that had nothing to do with Epstein's conduct. They maybe had lunch with him or maybe had some correspondence for one thing or another. If that name gets out, those people are destroyed because there's not going to be any context. Media doesn't care about context. So you can't do that.
So over and over, we've seen the same answer from the president. Not the fact that, oh no, the Epstein files, it's a lefty conspiracy. No, actually, it's the worry that people in the files are going to have their lives destroyed by the files. That sounds a lot more like covering for the people in the files than it does covering the victims. We've heard Kash Patel and Pam Bondi talk about, oh, we got to protect the victims.
Go through it very cautiously to protect all the victims.
It's pretty simple with the Epstein stuff. A lot of people in positions of power are understandably making this somewhat logical calculation that if this were to be released, because elite pedophilia and like sex trafficking rings are of bipartisan consensus, that it would basically ruin societal elite. It's not enough that they basically have designed a system where they extract all of your surplus labor value and become immensely powerful and control all facets of media, all facets of information by social media, also simultaneously making you work day in, day out and see nothing in return for that. But then on top of that, there is obviously some additional ties that hold people together. I don't think it's like ritualistic or anything like that, but I do think that there's at least like some kind of a blackmail operation involved, like that Jeffrey Epstein was seen as like a fixer of sorts. And therefore, this would implicate a lot of societal elite, whether liberal or Republican. It's the MAD, it's the pedophilia, exactly. It's the pedophile MAD, mutual assured destruction. So these guys they're not invested in undermining the system that they are now in charge of, understandably so. But for us on the outside, this goes beyond the normalized attitude that we have where we do not recognize our class position and we do not recognize our class interest. But this is one thing that we all recognize as like morally repugnant behavior, which is pedophile sex trafficking. It is morally repugnant. It's completely unacceptable. It's the most evil thing you can do. And therefore, many people don't give a about society falling apart if that's the case. Because why would they? If the foundations of what keep the American societal elite together is this like pedophilia sex trafficking ring, then yeah, break it, burn it to the ground, right? It's understandable that people would be like, I don't want any association with that. It's not something that you can simply just like wash away. It's also not like capitalism in the sense that you can get people to be on board with it, to get people invested in it, to get people to feel like they have a upper hand, to get people to feel like if they were to just be loyal soldiers to capital, that one day they can also be a billionaire or a millionaire. There is no meritocratic propaganda to sex trafficking of minors. No one sees Jeffrey Epstein as an ambitious figure. No one thinks, oh, one day I too want to work really hard and be in the inner circle of elite pedophile sex traffickers in the way that they do feel about capitalism in general and the prosperity that it brings if you are a willing participant, that one day you too could be a millionaire. There are temporarily embarrassed millionaires and billionaires. There are no temporarily embarrassed pedophiles, okay? It's not an aspirational figure. You understand? In the most predictable, most American way, this is the one thing that unites class interest, that actually creates class consciousness. Ironically enough, we cannot instill class consciousness on the boundaries of class. But of course, because we're so conspiratorially minded, this is the one area where there is actually some semblance of class consciousness and class unity, which is crazy. Here it is. Lee Fong does the classic pedantic take. The Epstein list is a bit of a misnomer. There are hundreds of docs, pictures, and videos taken from Epstein's homes featuring his high-profile Rolodex, politicians, CEOs, etc., engaging with the underage women he victimized. That's what Trump is suppressing and lying about. The Epstein files are a grating discourse object because, yeah, there were surely incriminating things in his possession, as Lee points out, that have disappeared since the arrest. But the moron MAGA crowd hyped up the files as a vague burn book, making QAnon prophecy come true. I'm just grateful that the intelligent inquiry into the conspiracy is pendulum swinging back to left-coded, just in time for the reportedly huge Washington Post story coming out tomorrow about George Joanides, the CIA, and the assassination of JFK. Yeah, underage women, aka children. Robert Skvarla says, I keep returning to the data broker with intelligence ties that was tracking the devices of people traveling to and from Epstein's properties. Now, however, 11,279 coordinates obtained by Wired show not only a flood of traffic to Epstein's island property nearly a decade after his conviction as a sex offender, but also points to as many as 166 locations throughout the U.S. where near intelligence infers that visitors to Little St. James likely lived and worked. The cache also points to cities in Ukraine, the Cayman Islands, and Australia, among others. Near intelligence, for example, tracked devices visiting Little St. James from locations in 80 cities, crisscrossing 26 U.S. states and territories, with Florida, Massachusetts, Texas, Michigan, and New York topping the list. The coordinates points to mansions and gated communities in Michigan and Florida, homes in Martha's Vineyard and Nantucket in Massachusetts, a nightclub in Miami, and the sidewalk across the street from Trump Tower on 5th Avenue in New York City. The coordinates also point to various Epstein properties beyond Little St. James, including his 8,000-acre New Mexico ranch and a waterfront mansion on El Brillo Way in Palm Beach, where prosecutors said in an indictment that Epstein trafficked numerous minor girls for the purposes of molesting and abusing them. Near data is notably missing any locations from Europe where citizens are safeguarded by comprehensive privacy laws. Yeah, we tracked every, this is the Wired article associated with this, or the Wired video associated with this article. Several ad exchanges, according to Wall Street Journal, have reportedly terminated arrangements with Near, claiming that its use of their data violated the exchange's terms of service. Officially, this data is intended to be used by companies hoping to determine where potential customers work and reside. But in October 2023, the Journal revealed that Near had once provided data to the U.S. military via a maze of obscure marketing companies, cutouts, and conduits to defense contractors. Bankruptcy records reviewed by Wired showed that in April 2023, Near Intelligence signed a year-long contract with another firm called In Context, a subsidiary of defense contractor Sierra Nevada. Remember when I told you that China does not actually need to spy on American citizens because they can use data brokers to do whatever kind of surveillance that they want to, that their spy satellites would not cover? This is precisely what I was talking about. Data brokers can allow comprehensive pinpoint accuracy on people that you want to surveil in the United States of America, where we don't have, where we very clearly don't have any privacy laws whatsoever. This is one of the only instances where you can at least like take advantage of that to conduct some sort of comprehensive investigation. And Context secured 6 federal contracts to provide data in support of the National Security Agency and Defense Counterintelligence Security Agency, according to reporting by Byron Tao, author of Means of Control, an expose of data broker industry and its ties to the U.S. surveillance state. According to information released during a $100 million funding round in 2019, Near claims to have information on roughly 1.6 billion people in 44 countries. Anyway, let's see what Alex Jones's new copium session looks like, because as you guys know, he's been actively trying to sweep for the Trump administration here.
As you know, I just call balls and strikes.
Yeah, no, totally. Good start. Let's see.
And after years of saying they will release the Epstein filer list, suddenly they're not going to, and we're told it doesn't exist. But then Trump comes out last night and says, well, it does exist, but the Democrats had control of it, manipulated it, which is actually true. They've had control, but they would destroy anything they didn't want in there and leave what they wanted in there that their investigators could plant. So people say, well, then whose side are you on? This is a giant fiasco. I'm trying to call balls and strikes. I'm trying to look at every angle of this and understand what's happening, understand why the Trump administration did a 180 the last few months, and particularly the last week, and did this, and then blames loyal supporters that support the overall agenda as being traitorous for doing this. Now, we all know what triggered this. It was Elon 2 months ago saying, look, Trump's in the list, and that big breakup there. And then Trump wants it closed. He wants it shut down, which looks extremely, extremely incriminating. But from all of my deep research, never saw Trump involved in any illegal activity with Jeffrey Epstein. So we are simply here tracking this case, not choosing a side, not wanting to make things be what we want them to be, but simply looking at the.
I like that he starts off this by being like, well, all my research shows Trump is innocent 100%. So we're not here to pick a side. I'm here to call balls and strikes, which of course showed me, and my deep research shows me that Trump is actually a white hat pedophile. That's right. Any kind of sex trafficking pedophilia that Donald Trump might have engaged in, he actually did to unearth Jeffrey Epstein's horrific crimes that mostly liberal Democrats were doing.
Facts, but I dropped the ball. I didn't even think about the fact. I'm like, oh yeah, if they've had the list and they've had the files for years, the Democrats would take.
Yeah, with all of his endless research, he couldn't come up with as stupid of an answer as Donald Trump just did. No one even believes this, by the way. Like, not even the Alex Jones fans believe this. He is literally just doing propaganda in the same way that Dan Bongino was, and in the same way that what's his face, Kash Patel was doing. He's like, big beautiful President Donald Trump, he would not be involved in this, I promise. It's just all the people around him that are they're involved in it. But also big beautiful President Donald Trump's statements about the list is actually correct. I didn't even think about that. For years and years, he understandably railed against the Clintons and loved talking about the Epstein connection with the Clintons. And there's plenty of connection with the Clintons and Jeffrey Epstein. But if it wasn't Donald Trump who had actually gone on Alex Jones's podcast and had offered Alex Jones a platform and legitimacy, and any other Republican president who had also hung out with Jeffrey Epstein on numerous occasions, and Jeffrey Epstein frequented their golf course, for example, their golf club, and picked out victims from that person's golf club. If it wasn't Donald Trump and anybody else, do you think Alex Jones would not actually put the puzzle pieces together? I mean, the puzzle pieces are there. It's literally there. And he just actively avoids talking about those puzzle pieces. And instead will be like, no, that's right. That's right. Jeffrey Epstein was not involved at all with Donald Trump. He hated Donald Trump. All my research shows that Donald Trump is innocent.
Administration into a mega massive crisis. And Trump at press conferences and the rest of it saying, don't ask questions, triggers the ultimate Streisand effect and is insane. So I don't know where in the world they're coming up with that plan. We'll continue to track this in live time. We'll cover the good Trump's doing. We'll cover the bad he's doing to give Trump our ongoing advice. And I'm going to post a video later, do a live show today at 4 p.m. Central, breaking down what I think Trump needs to do to get things back on track. And that's release everything. That's why Steve Bannon wants it released. He went and interviewed Epstein. He knew him. Nothing to hide. You had Alan Dershowitz saying, release it all. Doesn't incriminate me. Okay, well, then release the whole thing. This is not going away. It's only blown up 10 times bigger. It's out of control. And this was so obvious a week ago. People said, oh, you're being a traitor. Say this will be a big issue. No, I'm seasoned. I'm informed. I'm involved. I know what's going on. It's insane. We'll cover it all at Infowars.com. Real Alex Jones on X. Pray for America. Pray for peace. Pray for President Trump. Do the right thing.
Here's Michael Wolff repeating his claim that Jeffrey Epstein showed him a Polaroid photos of Donald Trump cavorting with topless girls by Epstein's pool. Wolff says he believes the FBI took those photos from Epstein's safe and still holds them.
Snapshots. And among them, there are at least 3 that I remember. 2 of topless girls sitting in Trump's lap around Epstein's swimming pool. And then one...
Michael Wolff is a bit of a fabulist, I will admit. Okay, he is a little bit of a embellisher, which I feel like once you have that reputation as a serious journalist, then all of a sudden you're not so serious as a journalist, I will say. So who knows? Let's continue.
A stain on the front of Trump's pants with 3 or 4 girls laughing and pointing at it. So I have seen those pictures.
So what's your best guess as to where they are?
Well, I'm my best guess is that Epstein kept them in the safe. A safe was emptied out by the FBI. Where are those pictures?
Michael Wolff says Steve Bannon had become very friendly with Epstein. We know that to be true, by the way. That part is real. After Epstein's death, Wolff says Bannon freaked out and changed his phone numbers because he was afraid of his own connection to Epstein. He adds Bannon believed Epstein was killed.
One of the first phone calls I got when when Jeffrey Epstein died, which was in the beginning of August 2019, was from Steve Bannon, and who had become very friendly with Epstein, and Bannon said, you know, of course he was killed. Of course he didn't kill himself. And then Bannon then began to freak out and change his telephone numbers, and a moment.
Why?
Because he was suddenly afraid. I mean, I think afraid of his own connection to Epstein.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I was never afraid, and I always take these things with I'm somewhat skeptical about these things, and I'm somewhat skeptical, remains skeptical that was he murdered? Yeah, I don't see that. At the same time, I'm not sure. It seems unconvincing that he would have killed himself the way it is described that he would have had to have done it, which is basically break his own neck.
Wolf says that he participated in riveting salons hosted by Epstein, which featured an extraordinary gamut of people, including former prime ministers or heads of finance in various countries. Vicky Ward fails to follow up by asking him who those high-level Epstein guests were.
From this quite extraordinary gamut of people who were there talking about the affairs of the world at an enormously high level, and at a knowledgeable level. I mean, these were some former prime ministers or heads of finance in various countries. I was there many times, and it was a kind of a riveting experience.
That's crazy.
Right. And of course, the mystery is, how did a guy who didn't have a college degree and had no real, formal training in anything, wasn't in the markets himself,
Who are the people? No questions on who the heads of state were? It's a good question, to be fair. I mean, it's a question that we know the answer to because it was because of his connections. Clearly it wasn't about anything other than that. Nobody was there because he was just a incredible conversationalist. Okay. That's psychotic. Some of the wealthiest individuals in society. And I guess they were all there because of his amazing stock trading tips and his tax portfolio.